your answer about Arizona call, you said that the craziness that ensued. Tell me about the craziness.
Well, I mean, like I said, you have got a U.S. senator who says I should be fired and I'm part of a cover-up. You have there was sort of this splenetic rage that was pouring out.
Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert in Washington. Tonight, Chris Stirewalt testified before the January 6th committee just a few hours ago. Next, he tells me what the committee didn't ask, but that you need to know, and why the pain of rising gas prices is just the start of our collective economic misery, and how the politicians of both parties are making those things worse. Plus, more problems for President Biden from his own party, why big-name Democrats say they can't figure out the future. But first, on point tonight from a very rainy Washington, D.C., it's usually said that Washington is 64 square miles surrounded by reality, and that line is usually said as a joke. Tonight, though, it could not be truer. Never before have the economic alarm bells rang quite as loud, and today, those working in the Capitol behind me and 16 blocks up Pennsylvania Avenue reached a new low of partisan dysfunction. And high gas prices might just look like the good old days when the fall food shortages come. Yes, you did hear us correctly. Food shortages, not in Venezuela or Cuba or North Korea. But there are real reasons to believe the empty baby formula shelves are just the beginning. Additional shortages aren't guaranteed, but the same people who said inflation was transitory last year and the baby formula crisis would only last a couple of weeks are now telling us not to worry. The stock market trades on the future, and today Wall Street gave us a bleak prediction. They are worried. The NASDAQ down almost 5%, the S&P 500 down almost 4%, down 20% from their highs. We're going to get to the food shortages in a minute, but here in Washington, they aren't too concerned. Remember, 64 miles surrounded by reality. And rather than dealing with our problems or finding ways to deal with gas prices, Washington is doing what it does best: score political points on the other side. Today, Law and Order Special Elections Unit moved from prime time to daytime for episode 2 of televised hearings. Former Fox News and now NewsNation politics editor Chris Stirewalt testified before the January 6th committee about his role in calling the 2020 race for Joe Biden. He also talked about the election night call of Arizona.
The idea that through any normal process in any of these states, remember, he had to do it thrice, right? He needed 3 of these states to change. And in order to do that, I mean, you're at an infant, you're better off to play the Powerball than to have that come in.
We'll get to more of those moments in a minute. Bottom line on the hearings, we are learning precious little that is totally new. But they are revealing, the committee is revealing, a mountain of evidence proving things reasonable people long ago assumed. Most importantly, new evidence that when his staff told President Trump that he lost the election, Mr. Trump changed the messengers and staff surrounding himself with yes men who came up with increasingly bizarre conspiracy theories. Here is Trump's former Attorney General, Bill Barr.
I was somewhat demoralized because I thought, boy, if he really believes this stuff, he has, lost contact with he's become detached from reality if he really believes this stuff. There was never an indication of interest in what the actual facts were.
Now to Chris Stirewalt and what the committee didn't ask. We obviously see what we see on television. You've had a really unique insight into the committee and its work. Have you found them to be doing the work diligently and honorably as a fact-finding mission, or is there a inherently partisan nature to what they're doing?
Look, it's like you asked the blindfolded men to describe the elephant to you. One guy says it's a tree because he's touching the leg. The other guy says it's a snake, he's touching the nose. The other guy says it's a rope, he's got the tail. I had a very small part of the elephant in my grasp. I have no idea what the rest of the committee is doing or how they are, but I can tell you the people I worked with, who I talked to and who did the pre-interview with me, were courteous, professional, patriotic seeming, good to work with. I did not have any problem with them, nor did I feel like they wanted me to change what I had to say or that the truth would somehow be unsuitable. Our understanding of January 6th, you and I have talked about it before, but so much focus goes on, well, how will this affect midterms? Well, how will this affect this? Will this win the day? Will this lose the day? It's really important. We got here imperfectly, but it's really important to make a record for all time of what happened, right? It's not sexy. It doesn't make you win elections. And I watched as Republicans and Democrats traded back and forth, not living up to the levels of statesmanship that they should have exhibited in the wake of first of all, Trump's effort to steal the election, and then the January 6th attack, which was a consequence of his efforts. And I watched both parties fail us, and both parties refused to do the necessary thing, because the necessary thing in times like this is to say, I don't care whether it hurts me or helps me. I don't care whether this is good for me, good for the other side. This is the right thing to do right now, and the stakes are too high to do it. So we got here imperfectly. We got to the January 6th committee imperfectly, but the work had to be done at some point, and this is how it's getting done.
There's few people in the business who are as good as you. There's nobody better. You've been at this for multiple decades. What was it like back then to have the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, call you and your team a liar and a hack?
Well, he had been insulting me for quite a while, so I was well accustomed to Donald Trump saying that. I think the first thing he called me was a dumb puppet in 2016, and I thought, like, Kermit, like, he's cool, but no, you don't worry about what these. Don't listen to partisans, right? Because they're going to tell you. Donald Trump is like an extreme version of all of this. He is the pro wrestling version of the same game that partisans play all the time, which is they're not going to tell you what's bad for their side. They're only going to tell you what's bad for the other side. Anytime that you tell them that they're losing, what are they going to say? Well, you can't trust these polls. Like Donald Trump. Don't believe the polls unless I'm winning in the polls. Right. If I'm winning in the polls, then you should totally pay attention to the polls. So what you have to do, and it's not just with Donald Trump, it's with all the politicians, tune it out. Huh? Because what else are they going to say? What do you expect them to say?
You said the craziness that ensued. Tell me about the craziness.
Well, I mean, like I said, you have got a U.S. senator who says I should be fired and I'm part of a cover-up. You have there was sort of this splenetic rage that was pouring out because I think Fox News, once upon a time, was understood to have a news division and an opinion division. And the news division played it straight. We worked in the news division, supposed to play it straight, fair and balanced. That's the idea. The viewers, if you get lied to enough for long enough about what the shape of the race is, when you get to the end, of course you're going to be mad. You know, the sad part about January 6th is for those people who did those monstrous things that day, if you believed, what they were doing was correct. That's the problem. The problem is they thought they were acting in a patriotic, appropriate fashion. If you really believe that the Chinese have hacked our election and have stolen the president and all of that stuff, well, yeah, I mean, put on your Viking horns, like go do it. And because not enough people on the right side, this is a consequence, yet another consequence of a partisan siloed media. If you're here in the echo chamber, you're not going to be ready for real life because you're only going to be flattered and cosseted and kissed up to by the people who are spoon feeding you this information. If you want to be a good citizen, you're going to have to hear some things that make you unhappy from time to time.
Have we learned anything new out of these hearings, or have we merely been provided evidence of things that most reasonable people and informed people should have expected?
Well, I think Bill Barr has been very revealing. I think the comments that Bill Barr has made have been quite revealing.
Are they that different than what he said in his book?
I'm sure it's a great book. I have not read the whole book. I don't know what all is in there. I thought Bill Barr's comments were revealing. I thought what we heard from Bill Stepien was very revealing about what Trump knew, when they knew it, and how did this start. Part of this that's interesting to me is the Trump campaign the Republican Party built sort of a scaffolding around Donald Trump for the 2020 election. The RNC came in, and then he gets Bill Stepien after his first campaign manager washes out. He gets Bill Stepien, an old pro, right? A guy of great experience, Chris Christie guy, worked for the Bushes, worked for Mitt Romney, like he is a normal Republican. And he gets a normal Republican campaign manager. They sort of erect this scaffolding around Trump that they're going to try to win the presidency again with voters who want it to be Trump and with Republicans who want the policies but don't like Trump. So they're trying to thread this needle again in a difficult circumstance, pandemic, blah, 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 blah. What was revealing to me about what Stepien said was the turn that happens inside the White House and inside the administration after Trump can't get people to lie to him anymore, right? That what Trump is looking, and when Stepien talked about what the lawyer said, what Stepien said, what is everybody, tell me, like, lie to me. Basically, Trump is saying to them, you lie to me, tell me what I want to hear right now, or I'm going to get really angry. So the problem with weak leaders is that they cannot tolerate to hear what they don't want. So eventually they will find a group of people to surround them, to flatter them and keep the bubble thicker and thicker. And you can see what happened, that Trump pushed out the last honest men or the last legitimate people and turns to Rudy Giuliani. Holy crocono. I mean, those deposition videos, yikes-a-rooney. And you have Trump turn to these people and embrace this stuff, and you can follow the line from there to the end. I found all of that interesting and worthwhile in terms of my understanding. In terms of what the public takes out of this, I think the most important thing that the public can take out of all of this stuff, or what I hope they will take out of this, is that our founders constructed a system of anti-majoritarian checks and balances to make sure that power could not concentrate in the hands of too few people. And you see that the human desire for power, this lust for power, is so enormous and so consuming that around elections, you've got to put up big, bright barriers. You may not come here, you may not go there. The fact that Congress has failed to act on the Electoral Count Act, the fact that we have not seen bipartisan reform on that question to address this, is yet another bipartisan failing to really deal with security. We cannot go through this again in 2024. Donald Trump was the first president who ever tried to steal a second term or interfere with the peaceful transfer of power. It was the first time in American history. We had done it since 1800, when Thomas Jefferson defeated his hated rival, John Adams, and took the presidency away from him. And the world watched and said, can this young republic do it? Can this young republic do this? And we did it. And we did it, and we kept doing it for 226 years. Since George Washington handed over John Adams, 226 years, we did it the whole time. One time, we did it the wrong way. And Donald Trump provided a credible threat that we would not maintain our birthright of this peaceful transference of power. And if we don't get it right in 2024, we are well and truly screwed.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.